Hey everybody, and welcome back to the ZMAM show. We are talking Bill and Ted Face the Music.
They do face the music,
They
don't
do
they?
face the music, and you know this movie. If you've been on the fence with this, we had Adam. I can't believe this movie. It came back. It came out around August of 2020, and I couldn't believe I put it off this long to watch it.
I was excited about it when it first came out. Still love the first Bill and Ted movie. Obviously, it's a niche following. I think I just happened to be in that segment of people they were trying to hit. But two slackers get their act together so they can be they can they can stay together. One doesn't get sent off to military school. They can start a band. They can save the world. I mean, like as a kid growing up, that's
It is
fantastic stuff,
fantastic, and they
man.
were all about the music and being together. It was always us, together. Always, both of them in it to the end. And this movie, it was like you mentioned a little bit in our pre-talk. It was a little kind of sad to see that they start off the movie is that they failed ultimately. I mean, after their big hit at the end of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which seemed to rock the world, they kind of just went to a slump, and it just kind of went straight down, like on the chart. And they've hit almost rock bottom, but yet as you stare at these two guys, I mean, Adam, you talked about it a bit, and you can hit it on some more. They look like these two guys who just kind of never grew up.
Yeah, I mean they look like they were stuck in the 80s and 90s. I mean, they looked like, and the funny thing is you could see it in their daughters because their daughters were acting exactly like they acted when they were
Yes.
younger, but like it felt really out of place because no one acts that way. It made sense in the story, but in some
Yeah.
respects it was hard to watch because like I'm just like these feel like guys who just like they latched on to some idea, which granted was provided by somebody who time traveled from the future and said they were going to do it. It's a solid reason to latch on, but they just latched on and held on for dear life and just like seemed like they just threw everything else out the window, and it showed like they were like a bunch of teenagers stuck in adults'
They
bodies.
were, or are. But it was great seeing them both back in action, although I couldn't help but notice that they really just looked like a couple of just kind of tired older dudes. And I
They
and I
really
use the
did.
word dude a lot too because I was rewatching Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I was mentioning to Adam, and I was looking at it like, am I going to enjoy this like I did when I was a young teen, and whatever, and young boy, whatever, or am I going to look back at this and be like, oh my god, why did I ever enjoy this? And to be surprised, I was laughing. I was enjoying the scenes. Like I was like, this is the old Bill and Ted I remember. And after seeing the new one and then just watching about 30 minutes of Bill and Ted's Bogus, I was like, oh man, the excitement, the energy, it just over time it drains. It was not much unsimilar to Bad Boys, the most recent, I forget what that was called, but the most recent Bad Boys movie that came out. It was just kind of like Bart Lawrence and Will Smith they're just kind of a couple old cops just kind of trying to run around and do action stunts, and it didn't sell near as much as the previous movies. But again, off of that, back to Bill and Ted's, we did have some great cameos coming back in. And although they did change the wives, as they do in the princesses, if you will, in every single movie I found, George Carlin, unfortunately, Rufus passed away in 2008. So we have his daughter. She comes in as a brand new character. We got to see William Sadler back in as Death,
Yeah,
and I thought that was really great because, and
I liked
spoiler
it.
here, but basically he ends up, I guess he went power hungry and he wanted to go solo, and I guess he was angry because he said he never got a chance to play. Now these were the parts of the moments in the movie that I found really really enjoyable. It's like these little one-off moments, and they're like, Death, you went on like, what do you say, like 80-minute bass solos, or no, 8 minute bass solo, and they're like, nobody wants to listen to bass for 8 minutes, or whatever. Anyways, there was goofy moments like that. There are great moments in this movie where the Bill and Teds are traveling forward in time to try and find this song, the future song, right, Adam? Because what have we found out? What's going to happen basically if they don't grab this song?
I think that in the original timeline, they write a song that unites the world. Well, apparently, if they don't write that song, reality begins tearing at the fabric. So you're getting people from Victorian era appearing in the modern time randomly. You're getting random portals opening up, and it's just basically it's like it seems like reality is starting to tear itself apart because they have not created this
Right.
song. And so so the people from the future are trying to figure out, well, how do we fulfill the prophecy and prevent this from happening? And so Rufus's daughter decides she's going to go and try to figure out how to motivate them to create this song.
That's right. And then they go on this journey and they keep going to the future. And what was great, I guess the great moments I was finding, Adam, you chime in too, is when they were meeting their future selves. But it wasn't just at the meeting of them, it's like their future self, even though they were technically trying to steal this song from their future people and make it take the easy road like they've always done, which is not a good idea in general. But the future selves are even trying to dick over, the current Bill and Ted that are doing all the traveling. And
Yeah.
you get to see this as they continue to forward leap into time, and not to spoil all of it, but you get a scene where they're in prison and they've both got jacked out of their minds. I mean, I don't know what they did with the special effects or makeup department to get this to work right, but the Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, they did great. They're just like these jacked, roided prison dudes, and it was just a great, funny moment. I really found myself chuckling and laughing at those times. What about you, Adam? How are you doing with it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was not only was it funny, but like from a character growth perspective, what I appreciated about them interfacing with their future selves is both versions of Bill and Ted, whatever time period you're in, are kind of having to learn by interacting with themselves the part that they've played and why they are where they are.
Yeah.
And so I kind of appreciate that not only was their future arc one of the funnier and more enjoyable parts of the movie, but it was also the part where character growth was really happening.
It was absolutely. That was definitely where they were growing. They were learning from each other. Although the ones in the future, they were doing all the wrong things really to try and
Right.
I think they were just so angry at their previous selves because even though they were
Right.
trying to jerk them over, they were the ones getting jerked over in the end. And then the previous selves, although making some small mistakes along the way, but were also building and learning about their lives, their relationships with their daughters, mind you. Let's hit on that on the next part there, and also their wives, which seems like their marriages could be in jeopardy as well. So they tie in some interesting elements throughout the film, which, by the way, keeps the film moving at a decent pace. I never really felt like I was bored. I felt
No, I wouldn't
I
either.
did, but let's go to the daughters thing. So, for those who are fans of Bill and Ted's, you know that Bill and Ted, at the end of Bogus Journey, introduced this is little Bill and this is little Ted. And they were little boys, at least as far as we thought and we knew. But comes out, no, they weren't. It was little Billy, i.e., and little Thea, or Tia, I don't know, but I think it's Thea. Anyways, females. And, I like the actresses they chose for them, but yeah, again, like you're saying, Adam, they kind of acted like their dads, which really even our time frame, which it's relevant, right? It's like 2021, 2022. Who really acts like that? I mean, the youth. I mean, that's not what the millennials act like, and maybe that's for the best. Maybe they're like, hey, we can't do what these people actually really do because otherwise we don't
Yeah.
have a movie. But go ahead, talk a little bit about them.
And I think Bill and Ted's behavior already felt a little dated because it came out of the 80s and 90s, and as much as I loved growing up in that, like I know where we're at right
Yeah.
now, but their daughters acting like basically the second coming of Bill and Ted felt super dated because
Yeah.
like you said, how many kids out there aren't getting some of their behavior from their friends, from TV, and these two daughters were splitting images of their fathers other than the fact that they were women basically.
I mean,
So, and it
because
was hard to watch. It was
yeah.
like, man, you guys screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say, like, no, maybe it was in their genes, because they were the chosen ones and it's been passed down to even their kids. Whatever, you can go a lot of different ways with it, but it did feel dated. It felt a little awkward at times. Although the one female, Samara Weaving, which plays in The Babysitter, good slasher thriller if you haven't seen that one, she was also in the movie, I just remember the name of it, Adam, Ready or Not. We did that
Yep,
review as well,
reviewed that
where
one.
she's the bride and they're chasing her around the house trying to kill her for a certain reason. You can go see the movie, find out why, or watch our review for that matter on the channel. But yeah, I mean, she did a good, goofy job with them. But what we end
Yeah.
up seeing them do is while Bill and Ted are on their chase the MacGuffin to find this song throughout time into the future, we now have the daughters trying to back their dads up by going and finding all these key musical figures, right, to help them build this song. So when they do come back, they have their band ready to go. Which, by the way, awesome, noble. It makes sense. A few of their choices were interesting. They had some great choices, like Louis Armstrong and was it the guitarist
Jimi
Jimi Hendrix?
Hendrix.
Yes, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But then they grab a drummer from like 942 BC, and he's in his wardrobe, of his caveman gown or something like that, and I'm just kind of like, this is the guy that's gonna lead the drums, at times it just felt a little goofy.
Yeah.
Not things by any means, as we talked to Adam. It's not gonna ruin the film, but it's just you kind of sit there and you start thinking for a minute sometimes, a little bit. And by the way, mostly when the movie was over is when I was thinking this stuff. But all the same, it was entertaining. They get their little band put together. But it was interesting the message they were kind of going along, because eventually we finally find out, full spoilers here, if we haven't already, that basically it's not just Bill and Ted that are going to save the future. It's a combination of them, their daughters, and pretty much the world coming together with music.
Yeah, and I will say that the message itself makes sense to me, because I think that there's only so much we can do alone, right? So like the more people you can get on board with whatever message you have, whatever movement you have, the more likely I think it is to be successful.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that it all had to, I mean, anyone who's ever tried organizing a large group of people, it is possible to build up that much excitement in a very short time frame. And maybe if the fabric of reality is splitting apart, people are going to be a little bit more likely to listen to you if they think you know what you're talking about. But man, this all happened real quick.
I mean, you're talking like the last literally 5 minutes of the movie. Everything is like literally coming together at like once. And it was very cheesy, and it was very over the top. Now, mind you, we're talking about Bill and Ted, so should we be really disappointed by this?
It's hard to say, right?
Mean, if you take the movie too seriously, then yeah, you're probably going to be very let down. And here was my thought on that, Adam. I wanted to mention this here. So, like in Bill and Ted's The First Journey, or actual adventure, I should say, there were consequences behind and although it wasn't life or death consequences, Ted was going to possibly get pulled from school. His dad was going to send him off to military school. He'd lose his best friend forever. You break this bond, and you already love these guys anyways. They just have such a great chemistry. There were consequences. And Bogus Journey, they die. They're trying to get back to their lives so they can, create music that will bring the world together, but also live again, get their girls back. Again, consequences in between. This one, I mean, I guess the main consequence was the whole world, and like you said, the whole fabric of time pretty much collapsing on itself. Yeah, that's a bad thing. It was also extremely random how it just kind of like, the future people, there's something like, this is happening, and it's like, oh, okay, sure, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Maybe a little lame in the writing aspect, but again, you got to have some kind of calamity in there, and I guess they're trying to either go big or go home, and they went big, and they went real big. By the end, there's so much craziness going on. You got, like you said, you got Roman chariots coming into 2021. You got like George Washington. I will admit it was kind of funny at the end in the credits watching all the people play the music or whatever, and you have, I think it's George Washington on his boat crossing the Potomac or whatever, and they're all like on the boat playing music and shit. I'm like, I couldn't help but think to myself, y'all better get your rifles back out and get ready to get after it, because I don't think the other side is going to care if you throw a trumpet at their face. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, in the movie, to be fair, it is called Bill and Ted Face the Music, so maybe the only people who were really supposed to learn and grow in the movie were Bill and Ted. They were supposed to come to grips with the fact that they really hadn't progressed in 30 years, and they needed to figure out what to do, not just to keep their wives and to help their daughters become something, but to actually save reality as we know it. But like another thing to add in the first movie, like when Sigmund Freud did an analysis of where some of Ted's fears come from. Abraham Lincoln gave a speech. Billy the Kid shot a light out. And I mean, granted, the first movie was super whitewashed. So if you're looking to get some diversity in there, I understand why you move in that direction for this one. True. But the thing is, each of those characters did something that was easy to believe that they were already good at. And like I imagine that Kid Cudi i- is probably he seems like a very intelligent individual, and maybe he does study
Physics,
physics
yeah,
and the multiverse in his spare
yeah.
time, but the fact that he just conveniently knew about the seemed a little.
The
And I
quantum
think,
realm and this and that. And he's basically telling, I mean, poor Bill and
yeah,
Ted are looking at him like, dude, what are you talking about? And he's like, duh, dudes, the such and such. And I'm just kind of like, so either
right,
it's some kind of inside joke because either Kid Cudi is like into that kind of stuff,
maybe.
or it was just so randomized that that this random music, performer actually had an extra talent outside and he was just letting it be known, whatever. But
Could
by the
be.
end, Adam, it almost kind of felt like, I mean, at this point, let's just throw in whatever we need to just to get this film kind of
Yeah.
done. And you have to kind of laugh at the very, very end after all the crazy lights are going on, and I guess the energy they're creating from the music is stopping the time warp from crashing the world in or whatever else. And at the very, very, very end, it kind of shows this Earth, and it's kind of like zooming out from it, and it's the daughters talking, and they're like, yeah, so believe it or not, the world came together and played their music, and it worked. Cut. I mean, it was just, I couldn't help but just kind of be like, wow, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would have felt maybe a little bit better with some kind of, not heartwarming, but some kind of coming together with between, because this is probably Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter's probably last film together, more than likely. I mean, you could, now
Probably.
there is an after credits scene, if you want to check that out. Adam, did you see it? Did you watch through the credits?
Yes, yes, I know what you're
So
talking
we won't
about.
spoil that. Wait, watch it till after credits. Come back on and let us know what you thought about it. Honestly, Adam, it didn't hit me the way I think they were. It was interesting, but it was just kind of like, was this just like some random shot you guys did, and you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, let's put this in at the end.
Well, and I think unfortunately for me, it what it really highlighted to me is that they tried to make they tried to make it like they tried to add women and they tried to add a. Unfortunately, I think it really highlighted to me is that it was never really a great genre, like a great series of movies to introduce that kind of diversity in, because it was really kind of targeted toward a very narrow group of people to begin
Yeah,
with. So I think what they tried to do was maybe a little too ambitious with the Bill and
yeah.
Ted, and I think there were some cool things that happened as a result of it, but a lot of it seemed
It
forced.
did seem forced. And a lot of these movies, a lot of these ones that they've brought back, although entertaining, a lot of it times it felt forced. Kind of like when I feel like I should be laughing, but I'm not laughing, but I feel like they want me so badly to be laughing right now. You know what I mean? Or like to be really enjoying this moment, but it's like it's being forced on us. It's just, it doesn't make sense or something. I don't know. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it's well, I think when you're watching a movie, reading a book, listening to a piece of music, whatever, you should be able to suspend your disbelief and just allow everything to
Just go.
connect within whatever work of art you're currently focused
Right.
on. And when you start having to look outside of that work of art to make sense of things, it diminishes that piece of art. I'm
Sure.
not saying that it's not valuable outside in the world where things need to change, but within the art itself, like, it's good when it's
It
self-contained.
is. And, it's easy to pick things apart. I was just talking to Adam about this before we started the show. Like, although we picked these little nuances out and things like that, it didn't ruin the movie, but there were things that kind of brought me out of the experience just a tiny bit. But what brought me out of the movie may have engaged some of you even further. You might have been
Maybe.
like, man, no, this is legit. And that's all great too. That's why we all have our opinions. But I think we can agree with certain things. Like Adam, we were agreeing in this review that there's just certain things that you
Sure.
can't help but just kind of be like, eh. And it's kind of like when they cross that line. It's kind of like you got this thing going, it's flowing, and then suddenly, oh, left field squirrel, and you're just like, the hell
Yeah.
did that come from? This also was a goofball movie. It's just that these days I feel I have to try literally 20 times harder to get the characters to refill those roles correctly and get them down right and not make them look like complete ass clowns or losers for that matter. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think to me it just felt like this, like I said, not to
Go ahead.
restate anything, but this was something that just made sense 30 years ago and doesn't make as much
For
sense now.
sure. So if you get a chance, we definitely ZMAM. We were recommending going to see Bill and Ted Face the Music. It currently has a 6.1 on IMDb. If I were to rate this straight out, I'd give it probably a 6. I think so.
That's where I'm at too. It's 6. It's not that it's awful. It's that when I watch it, I can tell that it's about an era that's already passed. That's
It
all I'm
is.
saying.
And when you want to introduce 80s elements into movies, I bring up once again WW84. It's more than just adding in a mall that looks old or putting some people in some clothes that do this or that. Now,
Right.
it takes a lot more than that to bring it in. And there's another film that I want to watch sometime in the future, Adam, and it's called Summer of '84, and it's a thriller. But it's done in the '80s, and it's very
Ah,
simplistically done. It didn't need a lot, but it's kind of like a Goonies meets the possible murderer next door, and them trying to basically find out if this person is the murderer or not, that's doing these things in the town. It was very well done, and it gets pretty hardcore at the end too. Not so much like a horror flick, but I mean there were some elements. And anyways, I just one of those '80s ones that I think they did really right. So hopefully in the upcoming weeks we might tackle that one too. But for next week, I'm happy to say zombies. We're gonna get back into some zombies. We never had a chance to watch Zombieland Double Tap, and I hear it was a decent flick. I put it off for way over a year now. I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm talking Adam into it, so we're gonna come back. Hopefully, we get more of that good comedy. We're not gonna get any more Bill, probably.
probably not. No, I don't
But
think
even
so.
though he was great in the previous one, but we will probably have some good humor in between there, and Woody Harrelson and all the rest of the crew. So come back out next Wednesday, and we'll catch up with that one. But until then, this has been the review and talk for Bill and Ted Face the Music, and we will catch you guys at the next review.
See you at Zombieland Double Tap.